Welcome one and all to another live session. Boom. So today, just gonna straight run, do all these sorts of other things. Man, oh man, oh man, we got a lot to go over. But first, make sure you like, follow, sub if you enjoy learning about anything, I suppose. While we still have the ability to communicate. Woo! Uh, Hopefully they don't censor this anytime soon. But yeah, today we're doing history class, guys. So come round, one and all. Oh, as well as reading class. Don't mind my fat ass. Oh my god. Oh, it sounds horrible. What the fuck? Derp. So for any adults, young adults out there, or old ass people like me, I'm so old. Not really. We're gonna go over why the Declaration of Independence actually exists, why it's so important, especially nowadays, to look at these sorts of things, parts of history, why things happen the way they did, so that we don't have history repeat itself. Simple as that. So this is online, free, National Archives, while it's still here. Declaration of Independence. Transcription. So not the exact ye old time language, but a little bit more modernized, yet also literally used. Like it's the government, man. Like this is what the Constitution is based off of. As fundamentally, when you think about it, the Declaration of Independence was the precursor, not even just the precursor, but also the reasons and intent for the creation, the ratification, the drafting, the whole process of developing the United States Constitution. This is where you can look to see why the amendments are written the way they are, as well. This is the context. This is the literal freaking context right here, guys. So when you look at this and you start comparing it to things that are going on today, maybe it starts clicking. So in Congress, July 4th, 1776, the unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America, when in the course of human events, very important, human, doesn't matter if you're a citizen or not, this is considering society as a society built on human interaction and the collection of human consciousness, right? It becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature's God entitle them. God, we can look at the context not just of Christianity, Catholicism, or whatever religion. We're looking at the simple understanding that God is what allows the universe to exist, okay? We're speaking in terms of existence, in terms of human existence, because we're talking about human beings. Keep it simple. No malarkey, no throwing in partisanship or any of that bullshit. We're simply looking at the words and what they mean. I'm doing the job right now of the Supreme Court. You're welcome. So, a decent respect to the opinions of the mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impelled them to the separation. Basically, to summarize, the founders, the ones that wrote this declaration, the representatives of the 13 original colonies, all came together, right? This was a unanimously passed and voted upon document, which we'll see in the signatures and everything else. All the people that were in Congress, the delegates that were involved in writing this and proofreading it, taking the time to go through it, all understood that human beings have a right to exist as the laws of nature's and nature's God or the universe entitle them. A decent respect to the opinions of mankind, our thoughts, our expression, the First Amendment, Mhm. That they should declare the causes which impelled them to the separation. Our right to express ourselves, to express our feelings, to lay out the facts. We hold these truths to be self evident that all men are created equal, that they are all endowed by their Creator with their certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. You know, that famous line, it's famous for a reason, because this was the foundation of the separation from a mad king, from someone that didn't give a fuck about humanity, didn't give a fuck about your life, your livelihood, or anything. They just want to control. The tyranny, right? The objective bullshit that the people in the colonies had to deal with just because they were there, you know? Just because they disagreed, just because they had opinions. Like, this is recognition of that. Plain and simple. We hold these truths to be self evident because by the end of the day, time always tells the truth eventually through cause and effect, through reason and intent. It was understood that by the justice system back then, the principles of due process, right? When you look at the Constitution and its development, these ideas, these foundational ideas of a democracy, which, mind you, this wasn't the first democracy to exist. Obviously, there was Rome, even though it had its nuances and stuff, but the fundamental principles are still there because it was supposed to be for the people, and then ended up being for the rich people, which is history repeated itself. And this is recognition of that in plain fucking English. So, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. Granted, we need to also recognize back then there were huge gender roles. All right, that's just how the culture worked. There was a different perspective of that time, which it is what it is. That's why over time we had amendments. We offered changes because women end up playing a much bigger role in the development of society, in the understanding of human consciousness and human existence. Because it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, by the end of the day, you're still a human being. You have your nuances, you have your differences genetically, biologically. We can understand that. But regardless, the expression of thought, free speech, all of that is a human quality. So you can understand, yeah, sure, they're talking about men, but we already been through this whole discussion. We've already been through this whole bullshit for the last 100 so years since women's suffrage. So, not rehashing that. We need to accept that, stop going backwards, and fucking move on. Remember that we're all human beings. We all have a right to exist as the laws of nature's and of nature's God entitle them. Right? And over time, we've recognized that even more so. Except now we seem to forget what the fuck humanity even means in the first place with everything going on in the world. So that's why we're going over this today. So at least someone's doing it, because I don't see anyone else doing this shit. So, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, blah blah blah, humans, deriving their just powers from consent of the governed, from the people. You know, the representatives represent the people to secure the rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The fact that we exist, we have a right to exist, as long as we don't threaten other people's rights to life, to exist, to liberty, to the freedom of choice, and the pursuit of happiness, to be doing the right thing for yourselves and for your family and for everyone else. Understanding those basic principles that are laid out right here. Easy as that. You can use a dictionary to look up what each of these fucking words mean and simply come to the conclusion that it's relative to existence, to human beings, human rights. As this is the Declaration of Independence being a predicate for the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. This explains why those things are listed and were unanimously passed as the foundational supreme law of the land. No ifs, ands, or buts. And the Declaration of Independence is just proof of the conflict and the amount of work and the recognition of the injustices that were occurring at the time and recognition of such injustice. You know, when these things when we get to it, that they list off the grievances, when you start reading into that and just simply reading them and comparing them to shit that's going on right now, it starts to make sense. This has nothing to do with being woke. This just has to do with fucking knowing how to read. It's that easy. So, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, I'll cut that out. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, right, of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it. This is why we have the amendments that we have, the Bill of Rights listing the limits on government toward its people. Okay? Simple as that. Granted, there's some nuance when we get to the amendments, which we'll probably do a different day. We'll keep it separate. But when we get to that, or you can just check out my constitutional analysis on the channels, both Twitch, YouTube. It's a Google Doc. It's a work in process where I apply a philosophical theory of everything and the importance of existence, of human existence, not even just us, but everything else technically, relative to time, relative to reality, and the universe. So go check that out when you get the time. Ugh. As it's a different perspective, and whether you agree with it or not, you can write it off as vibes coding or whatever the fuck you want to label it, but it is what it is. And you can come to the same fucking conclusions yourself. To be a little bit crass and blunt about it. So anyways. Right of the people to alter or to abolish it and to institute new government, which is why, again, this is the reasons and intent for creating the United States Constitution, which laid the foundation for the United States of America, which is where most of us maybe looking at this actually live. So, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its power in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness, understanding the importance of existence and safety, as well as comfort, whether it's psychological or physiological, biological. You can consider all those factors regarding human beings, as happiness is psychological. So there's importance and significance to that, and there's clearly understanding here. So prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, and accordingly all experience hath shewn, which, you know, that's a little weird given the language, but understanding the perceived and lived experience of the ones that are writing this document, the ones that are dealing with the tyranny, you know, prudence indeed will dictate that government long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, and accordingly all experience has shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable, as tyranny, selfishness, you know, people that don't give a fuck about existence, your existence. They don't care about you. They don't care about your rights, your liberties, or anything. Doesn't matter if you're a citizen or not. About human beings, about people. Everyone bleeds the same, no matter what the color of their skin is, no matter what sexual orientation or what gender they are or may want to be, especially when they're a full-fledged adult, especially if they can join the military and fight for the country. Like, come on, people. Use the same fucking logic that you use for alcohol. It's so fucking, oh my god. And obviously, like, shit happens. There's crazy people out there no matter what they are or who they are. That's why we have a justice system. That's why we have due process. This isn't the movie Minority Report. You don't got precogs. There's no point in doing that. Otherwise, you're just gonna kill every human being because every human being is prone to making mistakes, and that's understood. You know, it's the whole point of due process. When we get in the Constitution, we'll cover that too, because they understand. That's why there's a justice system. That's why there's due process. So this is showing understanding that in the wrong hands, people that could care less about your existence inherently make you more exposed to suffering, as their experiences when they lay out going down, what they experience shows. So, but when a long train of abuses and usurpations, being usurped, or how at least back in the British monarchy, if there was prime ministers or certain delegates, representatives that weren't on board with what the oligarchs and the Mad King and the prime minister at the time wanted, you yeet. Bye-bye. That's simple. So that was recognized, especially people within the American colonies that would get kicked out of their positions. Oh, it sounds very familiar to what's going on right now when it comes to what certain representatives are saying about other ones. Pursuing invariably the same object events, are designed to reduce them under absolute deposition. Or despotism. My bad. This is, I get where people get confused, especially this day and age, because this language isn't necessarily intuitive. But, you got a fucking dictionary right here. So, let me show you an example of how to look shit up and you can figure it out for yourself. Because I swear to God, nobody takes the time to do any of this shit anymore. So, evinces, right? Evinces. Reveal the presence of a quality or feeling. So, recognition of an event, to recognize. Oh, the evidence of. Indicate. And then the Latin root being overcome defeat and evict. So, to recognize something that's necessarily bad, or the excitement, understanding. Simple as that. Understanding of a quality or feeling. Boom. Just recognition of it. Right? So now we know what that word means. You read it. Pursuing invariably the same object. So objectively. Recognitions. Right? Feelings or things. A design to reduce them under absolute despotism. Despotism, what does that mean? All right? Some people don't know. Some people do know. If you're a smarty pants, then you should be fucking reporting on this too. If you are, then thank you. Genuinely. Despotism. The exercise of absolute power, especially in a cruel and oppressive manner. So tyranny. Literally synonymous with the word tyranny and its definition. Wow, it's almost like they recognize that and that they list it out. So, awesome, right? The whole point of the democracy is to prevent tyranny, to prevent fascism, to prevent all these bad words. Because as history has shown over and over again, it's a slippery fucking slope when the government, especially the democratic one, is subject to people that are just cruel and do not give a shit about human existence. Just fundamentally, doesn't matter if you're a citizen, whatever. Hate breeds hate. It's as simple as that. And this clearly lays it out as just understanding the fundamentals of existence and the importance and significance of being human, of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Okay? So continue. It is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government, as in, it is there, the people, the human beings, you know? It's their right to do that and to provide new guards for their future security. So it's up to the people, it's up to the representatives, it's up to the military, it's up to everyone that has taken an oath to the US Constitution, because again, this is the foundational reasons and intent for why the Constitution is written the way it is, why each branch of government is assigned the roles that it is. It's why it's designed the way it is. This is why treason is clear cut in definition. When we get to the video about the Constitution, we'll go over that as well. But for brevity, so such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies. You know, they're talking from their own personal experience, what they had to go through for a few decades, or no, about 100 years. But the last few decades, the rule of King George, because it wasn't always like that. But things after 100 years, I think they landed into the 1600s. I don't remember exactly. Someone else can let me know down in the comments when Christopher Columbus came over and all of the colonies were established, or look it up for yourself. But and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. So the colonies and the people within, the representatives, understand the issues with the tyrannical form of government. And so they're like, fuck you, we're splitting. We're doing our own thing. We have a big giant ocean that separates us. And like, okay, well, this means war. Like, come on. So the history of the present King of Great Britain. So talking about King George, the Mad King, right? Game of Thrones reference? Maybe it's kind of relative. Maybe there's some similarities. And maybe there's some similarities what's going on today. So, the history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations. I cannot pronounce that word. Hold on. I need help. Brain fart. Usurpations.
Usurpation.
What the? Oh, it's French. No wonder. I mean, the colonists came from all sorts of territories that were controlled by the Great Britain at the time. That makes sense. See why it's important to look this shit up? You know, I didn't know it was French. Now I do. Wow, it only took me like 2 minutes. Not even. Huh. Anyways. All having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. Right? So, understanding tyranny bad. Fascism bad. Because it threatens the existence of all those under such jurisdiction. It just inherently does. When you're ruled by one person with selfish intent, no shit, he doesn't care about you. Duh! He only cares about who cares about him. That's not a good way to govern. That's not beneficial to society. It's that simple, come on. And if you want otherwise, if you think he's going to be helping you eventually, yeah, you're fucking stupid, man. You're part of the problem. This is why we have this document. This is why America was America. You know? This is why it went through what it did as a country for 250 years. And now it's getting all tested. So, to prove this, let facts... Sorry, that's some people are just allergic to that shit. Let facts be submitted to a candid world, right? Understanding that not the whole world's like this. And let's just be real. Okay? So, let's look at these and you can compare for yourself with what's going on right now and decide, maybe bad. Maybe history might be repeating itself. Not even just that. Look at the Weimar Republic, too. You got that, Rome, and France under Napoleon, man. Go look at predictive history. He covers that shit. So, he has refused his assent to laws, the most wholesome, and necessary for the public good. Bad. He puts laws in place, neglects them, doesn't give a fuck about them. He refuses to accept the laws that are actually protecting the people. I think that's what that actually means. I'm just getting ahead of myself a little bit, but he has refused his assent to laws. The assent to laws to Great Britain was, how the president signs to approve a law. That's what that is. That's literally the same thing, right? The British Parliament and our government do have a lot of similarities. There's just more rigidity and understanding with the United States Democratic Republic compared to the British monarchical parliament. There we go. So, the assent to law, same as signing a law into the books as the president. Refused to assent, even obviously through parliament, passed it, prime minister passed it. Refused, just because. Even though they were most wholesome and necessary for public good. That's bad. Oh, I feel like, some similarities to maybe some executive orders. Just neglecting laws, or as well as, threaten not to sign certain things, or, He has forbidden his governors to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance, unless suspended in their own operation till his assent should be attained. So he's withholding signing for his own selfish reasons. He didn't give a fuck if 200 people voted yes on something. Even though it was his job to just simply pass the fucking thing, to write it into law. No, he took matters into his own hands. And when so suspended, he has utterly neglected to attend them. He has refused to pass other laws for the accommodation of large districts of people. So he didn't like cities so much. Unless those people would relinquish the right of representation in the legislature. So that means just refuse delegates that properly accounted for the population. Maybe gerrymandering from the executive. Man, oh man. This is just sad reading this. A right to inestimable, to them, and formidable to tyrants only. So obviously, they're referencing the king refused to pass laws and recognize representation of larger districts specifically because he just wanted to. He didn't like them. It's threatening their existence, threatening to help them for one reason or another, mostly for selfish intent. Back then, they had the oligarchs. They had people giving him money left and right, paying off for his opinions, as well as him trying to blackmail and all this other stuff. Just go look up the British monarchy back then in around 1770s, 1760s, and a little bit before Mad King George. So, he has called together legislative bodies at places unusual. So just, special sessions. Just being very picky or only dealing with people that agreed with him rather than people that disagree with him. Siding with one party over the other instead of recognizing the legislative bodies as a whole, or just forcing them into uncomfortable situations and places distant from the depository of their public records, so not even being able to account for this, because back then, obviously, they didn't have the internet. They had to write something distant from where they kept records, from the buildings of legislatures, of the states, of the different colonies, right? So they made it difficult for people to work and pass their legislation properly. You create distance, you create more possibility for maybe, oh, someone just happens to run into the delivery boy and that law disappears for good, right? So doing some shady shit for the sole purpose of fatiguing them into compliance with his measures. Just it's forcing people to go through hoops and unnecessary lengths in order to deter them from doing the right thing for their people, the representatives, doing their job. So he has dissolved representative houses repeatedly for opposing with manly firmness his invasions of the rights of the people. So mind you, when we're talking about these experiences, this is from colonies, especially with distant from depository to their public records. They had a whole ass ocean. So if they wanted to communicate, pass legislation, and do anything, they had to travel all the way there, probably as far inland as possible, making it as difficult as possible for them to even get to where they needed to go to meet. And this is, mind you, 13 colonies communicating with Parliament all the way in Great Britain. So it was Mad King in cahoots with the Prime Minister and those legislators and representatives, just making things ridiculous for those in America, just to keep them down, keep them low, keep control, keep them from doing their own thing and what they want to do. So he's dissolved representative houses repeatedly for opposing with manly firmness his invasions on the rights of the people. Like, just not recognizing the colonies. Simple as that. Just being like, oh, you're less than your people that you represent are nothing compared to those of Great Britain. If you're not rich enough, then he probably didn't give a shit. That's all it is. He has refused for a long time, after such disillusions, to cause others to be elected, whereby the legislative powers incapable of annihilation have returned to the people at large for their exercise, the state remaining in the meantime exposed to all dangers of invasion from without and convulsions within. This one might need to break down a little bit. So he refused for a long time after, taking apart different representatives, not recognizing them, destroying certain legislators, like the power of the colonies to represent their people, to cause others to be elected. So we might have to get more into the nuance of how the British monarchy worked, especially overseas, because that's a consideration that they had to deal with. Just they didn't have internet. They didn't have any of that stuff. Again, they didn't have phones. They didn't none of that. They had to do everything the hard way. It took them so long to get shit done, but you know what? The time that it took gave them plenty of time to think over this shit. Gave them plenty of time to refine a lot of this stuff and to prepare. Because to take the time to understand things is extremely important, and it's been just a fact of life that's been forgotten about, especially with technology. Just people have gotten a little too comfortable with hearing things instantly or having the news come back to them instantly, not realizing that sometimes it takes time to properly digest what you perceive from an experience and what happens to you and try to understand reality. Like, you go to school, you take the time to learn shit in order to do shit. It's that easy. So, the fact that the colonies were clearly worried about being taken over, whether it was from maybe, I think the French Indian War, that might have happened in between somewhere. I don't recall. But there was some historical context to that. And mind you, dangers of invasion from without and convulsions within. So just issues within the colonies. He has endeavored to prevent the population of these states for that purpose, obstructing the laws of naturalization of foreigners. Hmm. You don't say. So there wasn't illegal immigration, or maybe he just said you're an illegal immigrant and that you don't belong because you live in America or you were born in America. Therefore, you're not recognized as a part of the British Parliament. Hmm. Oh, migration? Oh, refusing to pass others to encourage their migrations hither. Where have we experienced this before? In raising the conditions of new appropriations of lands. So, controlling territory. Saying that because you're not from here, or you're not a British citizen, you don't have rights. You don't have rights over the land. Sounds very familiar. No naturalization of foreigners. So, foreigner comes in, born in an American colony or the British colonies, not recognized. Hmm. Hmm. Very familiar. A little on the nose. DACA, anyone? Dreamers Act, anyone? Oh, repealing asylum seekers or anyone else that's seeking for a better life to help with, working in the country, to help with the lands, to be able to own land. Wow, this is very, very, very on the nose. Very, very similar to something that's maybe going on right now. Maybe they recognized this when they wrote the Constitution, and which is why they don't specifically say, you have to be a citizen for these rights to apply. Maybe because they use the word people and recognize that immigrants and foreigners are people. Maybe not criminals. Maybe obviously if you're not a foreigner, right, and you were just born here from a colony or whatever, sure, recognize you. But if you're a foreigner and the kid's born within territory, not recognizing them as, you know, under the jurisdiction of the law, therefore, oh, you're a criminal. Oh, it doesn't matter. You're born on this land or not. You're a criminal. You don't deserve any of these rights. You don't deserve to have land. You don't deserve anything. Get the fuck out. Or be enslaved. Hmm. Hmm. He has obstructed the administration of justice by refusing his assents to laws for establishing judiciary powers. So, not allowing the judicial system for due process, right? Not allowing proper due process, ignoring the courts, ignoring legislation passed through the colonies. He has obstructed the administration of justice, firing certain people he doesn't like, or just refusing to recognize any of the words, representation. Sorry, I'm just trying to think of other similarities. I mean, there's plenty that you can think of, especially when it comes to the judiciary. Buying people out from the Supreme Court, not recognizing national injunctions for the federal powers, the state powers from the judiciary in any sense. Only believing in the word of the Supreme Court, even though that's not how things worked for the past few decades, but okay. Actually, I don't know the exact history. Again, let me know down in the comments if you know more. Discuss all this, because I don't see anyone else doing it. You're welcome to. You're welcome to go over this, because this is important. This is why America became America. Like, duh. So, He has made judges dependent on his will alone for the tenure of their offices, and the amount of payment of their salaries. Okay. He has erected a multitude of new offices, and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out their substance. That's a little metaphorical, at least in today's standards. So we can go over this as, I mean, the last one's very fucking self-explanatory. I don't have to define any of that shit. You can figure that one out. But he has erected a multitude of offices, so certain federal bureaus, sending them a shit ton of money, and sent hither swarms of said officers to harass our people. You know, make certain offices and armies and police forces to come over to the colonies from Great Britain to harass the people and to eat their food, to take their land, eat out their substance, to take their resources for their own, and not just pay for their equal share. Oop. I'll be back. God damn, I'm going to have to cut this. You know,